We bring the boom. That's what we do. We bring the boom. We bring the boom to you. We bring the boom. We bring the boom to everyone. We bring the boom. Your favorite father and son. Every afternoon.
And we welcome you to another edition of This Is Wrestling. It is the AEW Full Gear Report. Versage, Zach friggin' McGibbon with you. Zach, always good to talk to you, and you never know when a new episode of This Is Wrestling will be out. And as we sit here late on a Sunday evening, as time permits, this is the best time for us to break down what I would call an interesting card here from AEW and Full Gear. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Lee. A bit of a busy weekend. Not only just obviously chatting with you here on this Sunday evening to discuss this Full Gear show, but also yesterday was at Remix Wrestling, their second anniversary show called Eye of the Tiger, and had a real fun time there at Broadhead Brewery. It was great to chat with some of the fans there, and made me miss Full Gear, watching Full Gear live, so I was able to catch up on it here today. But obviously, a lot to discuss here heading into this review.
I would say, Zach, one of the more I don't even know how to describe this show. A very different show for me than AEW is used to putting on. Not necessarily in a good way for me, but before we get into it, I almost want to ask you, like, without the specific matches, what was your overall feel of this card?
I was liking the show. I wasn't loving the show, based on the standards that we usually get with these AEW pay-per-views. There was some stuff I was enjoying, and there was some stuff I really wasn't liking, and so I guess that's where, for me, some of those weird vibes kind of come in about it. And just watching the show, it really kind of expressed to me how there's sort of two different versions of AEW right now, and that is the pay-per-view version and the TV version of AEW. And I currently like the pay-per-view version of AEW, but you could still see some of that dichotomy kind of seeping through in some of this pay-per-view cards. So I liked the show. I didn't hate it. There were elements of it I enjoyed it. There were some matches I really enjoyed, but there were definitely some different elements to it that made it different, as you mentioned, from other AEW pay-per-views.
I'm actually sitting here and I've just finished it. So I am as fresh as you possibly could be off of this show. I can tell you I'm disappointed. Now, that doesn't mean I'm disappointed in everything that happened, but I haven't left many, whether I've liked the shows, loved the shows, AEW pay-per-views for me have really come through with, okay, I understand kind of where they've gone, and I'm not left in a state of confusion. And while I think we sit here sometimes and say, well, this person should go over and that person should go over, this is a whole lot of main stars not going over in this one. And I can't say that at the end of the show, for the first time, Zach, I can't believe I'm going to say this. For the first time, it felt a little WCW-ish at the end of a show, at the end of a main pay-per-view show. That's not good. So I want to get to the end first, because I think there are some really good things to talk about. But I have to say, Jon Moxley defeats Orange Cassidy in the main event of Full Gear. And I just, Zach, even with the match that went on in Orange Cassidy, bleeding like hell, and I thought it was a bit rushed. And then I have no idea what the ending of the show was. Dumbfounded. Like Vince Russo booked it or something. After Jon Moxley defeats Orange Cassidy, I saw, in no particular order, and during the main event, and then after the main event, in no particular order, I saw Kyle O'Reilly for the second time, who was not involved in a match all night. Ricky Romero do a dive from the top rope in the main event of a pay-per-view.
Rocky Romero.
Rocky Romero.
Not the former Blue Jays pitcher, Ricky Romero.
I said Ricky. You know what? I would love to see Ricky Romero.
That would be quite the shock, yeah.
Because he's better than Rocky Romero.
He had a good 2011 season. I did enjoy Ricky Romero in 2011, 2012.
At his peak, he was a star. I can't say the same for Rocky.
He's a star in Mexico. Big in Mexico.
Yeah. Well, not in AEW in the main event.
Very true.
Of a pay-per-view. I saw, again, as you said, Ishii. Then I saw Christian Cage, Hangman Page, Jay White, Darby Allin, a car running into another car trying to kill somebody. How they had another car there just waiting to leave the Death Riders, I'm not sure. And I'm just awfully confused. So in all of that, I didn't mind Moxley against Orange Cassidy, other than I felt it was rushed and a bit similar, other than the blood, to some other matches on the card. I didn't mind it. But I don't need to see the conglomeration and Ricky, don't call me Rocky, but don't call me Ricky Romero. And I have no idea what happened at the end of this. I have no idea. Like I thought Christian Cage was actually going to win when Hangman came out and then gave him the contract and left. I thought he was actually going to win. But then Jay White came out and then they're running to the back and then cameras are following them. And then Darby Allin's there. And I thought this was a schmoz and the worst ending to an AEW pay-per-view that I have seen.
Yeah, I hated the angle as well. I didn't like it. I was with it when it was with Hangman Page and Christian Cage because it made sense because of what they were telling on TV. I know what you're saying about the conglomeration, but logically and storyline wise, it made sense for him to kind of come out and help Orange Cassidy because of the association. But when it started to get to Jay White, and I know they explained it on commentary that Christian Cage put Jay White out of action, like his group put Jay White out of action. I've been watching the TVs each week. I do not remember this big angle involving Christian Cage taking out Jay White.
Same.
I legitimately do not remember that. And I've been reading around and it seemed like not a lot of other people remember this big angle, so they were trying to cover for that. And then, the Darby Allin stuff, like, driving the truck into another car, and it didn't remind me of WCW, Vince Russo. It reminded me more of an Attitude Era angle, and not in a good way, where it's just like cars smashing into each other, guys trying to get away. I did not like this angle one bit either. It's one of those deals where, and it's something else I've heard, and I'm kind of taking it from another review, but I thought it was so poignant. At this point, it felt like writers trying to validate why their job exists when I was watching this main event angle. So when I was watching that, I was like, man, what are we doing here? Like, we don't need to do this stuff. We don't need to go full bore on this. I think I'm higher on the match itself than you are. I actually thought this was a real good look for Moxley in terms of really putting over that viciousness that he and his group is trying to portray, while still having a little bit of the group kind of help it out at the end, so you can still get the heat on them. So I like the match more than you did, I think, but I 100% agree with you on the angle. I did not like this angle, and they should have done something else, or just not do this angle. Just don't be afraid. Just have it be definitive, and just have the guy beat him, and then you could have, Darby lay out the challenge, but you don't have to do it in this sort of goofy way.
And I'm remiss that I didn't talk about the fact that Wheeler Yuta was the reason why somebody won in a main event.
Yes, that too. Yeah, that too as well. That was, I didn't like that part of the finish, but it didn't bother me to the point where it didn't affect my enjoyment of the overall match, but it certainly was something I wouldn't have booked.
In a pay-per-view main event, I don't need, the second that Pac and Claudio came out and Wheeler wasn't there, I'm like, I already know what's happening. So, everybody does. Wheeler Yuta didn't come out with the other two. Oh, I wonder if we're going to see him a little bit later. Oh, wouldn't you know that Wheeler Yuta is the reason why a pay-per-view main event ended? I mean, the storyline makes sense. I just don't want the pay-per-view main event to be about Wheeler Yuta, and just way too many shenanigans and people. Think about how many people were involved in the main event. Just in the back, they're like, okay, guys, it's main event time. Okay, John Moxley and Wheeler Yuta and Claudio and Pac and Marina, we need you. And then Orange Cassidy, we need Kyle O'Reilly and Rocky Romero and Ishii, and is there somebody else in the conglomeration? I can't remember.
Rocky Romero, Ishii, Mark Briscoe is technically in the conglomeration.
Yeah, he wasn't there tonight. But we need all of you. And then Hangman, we need you and Christian. And then Jay White. And then Darby. We need all of you. I'm like, that's 15 people. Come on. You're better than this.
I love me some weaving storylines, but there is a limit to stuff, right?
On.
I'm saying I agree with you. It's I like me some weaving stuff, but there is a limit to that sort of stuff as well.
If the WWE did this at the end of a major show, we would be killing it.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
And I'm not going to change on that. I'm supposed to feel, right? The way that they're trying to make you feel is that you got a whole bunch of main event players. But if Darby just laid out the challenge at the end, and Darby is going to be the next guy, then you didn't need all that other stuff. And you certainly didn't need the interference from earlier. It just, I don't know, way too overbooked.
Yeah.
And for something that should have been, and here's the issue. As we go back to the rest of the show, and we can debate it back and forth on whether there's some good things or bad things about this. I'm going to go through the matches, but I do want to just point this out to listeners. I'm going to put on one side, you know how they have those 8-man, 10-man all-star tags?
Yes.
That I just love so much because they're all-star. Everyone's an all-star. On one side, I'm going to put Bobby Lashley, and I'm going to put Kyle Fletcher, and I'm going to put Jack Perry, and I'm going to put Jay White. I'm going to put those people all on one side, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go through that list again. Jack Perry, Bobby Lashley, My brain is Jay White. And who's the other name I said?
Kyle Fletcher.
Kyle Fletcher. Would you say all of those people are, before tonight's show, all of those people are mid-card people?
As of where they're currently booked, yes.
Well, just your thoughts about them, like where they are right now in their careers. They're mid.
Some I would say upper mid card, but certainly in the mid card, yes.
Okay. On the other side, I'm going to put. Sorry, I shouldn't have put Jack Perry. I meant Daniel Garcia when I was putting that group in, and I screwed it up.
Also,
but on the other side, Swerve Strickland, Hangman Page,
Will Ospreay,
and Jack Perry. Would you say that those wrestlers have been treated like they are the upper mid card to main eventers?
Absolutely.
Right. So if you're taking that in an all-star tag team match, I think I'm going to take Hangman and Swerve and Will Ospreay and Jack Perry against the other guys. Tonight, clean, Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland and Will Ospreay and Jack Perry and Orange Cassidy all lost clean. All of them. A couple of them, I would say, in what I would call glorified squashes. Too many on one night? I'm asking you. Do you think it's too many?
I kind of disagree on the glorified squashes, but here's my thing on that. With what you've kind of laid out, I think the big issue with a lot of that is you look at individually each one of them, why they made those decisions, and I understand the decisions that they made. But the problem is, right now in this company, there's really not this big baby face that you could really cheer behind, especially in the case of the world title match, where you got some hope and you got somebody to cheer, you could get behind them. I think in certain cases, I think some of those losses are fine. Like, I looked at the Kyle Fletcher one, and I think that's perfectly okay for Ospreay to take a loss. I don't think it hurts him. I don't mind the Perry stuff. You know, I picked Jay White to win, but I could absolutely see the argument for Adam Page, and I could also definitely see the argument for Swerve Strickland. So of those four, I would definitely say two of them, I could have seen them going either way. But having said that, I'm kind of in a position where it's tough, where it's like, I've been somebody on this show that's kind of been preaching, man, we've had so many interference stuff going on in AEW recently and nothing's clean. It's like, you know what? Just do some stuff clean, put somebody over, and then be able to, you know, book these guys so that they could get on the comeback. I'm not concerned about Ospreay losing anything. I'm not really concerned about Swerve. I'm not really concerned about Adam Page. Jack Perry might be a little bit tough because he's not exactly in a high position in the first place in terms of at a certain overness level. So I'm not as down on the clean finishes, but I think it highlights, though, the overall problem when the main storyline that they're building everything around, I just don't think the baby faces that are at the top right now are strong enough to be able to carry it. So when you have heels underneath that they're trying to put over, win, there's this sense of, well, those guys are winning, but our main guy, our main baby face is on the come up and he's got momentum on his side.
Right. And I think that's kind of where I was going with this, is that in a vacuum, I'm like you, and we'll go through the matches here in a minute, but in a vacuum, I can understand those decisions being made. But when you look at the overall card, because you're the one that says this all the time, Did none of the bookers talk to each other?
Yes.
How many injury angles could we watch tonight? Between Roderick Strong's hand and Chris Statlander's knee and Hangman Page's knee and Jay White's ankle?
Yeah.
And like, come on.
Or the amount of times that they did the close pinfall, but one person grabs onto the bottom rope or puts their leg on the bottom rope. I saw that multiple times during the show as well.
But we got multiple injury angles of them working a hold and working an injury, which I understand. I just don't think you can do it 3, 4, 5 times in a row and expect people to be on the edge of their seat.
Yeah.
You got to give them something a little different. And it was just injury angle after injury angle after. So I know I'm kind of being a little bit harsh here. I do think a couple, especially going into the main event, which I also thought was a glorified squash. I think the one that actually kind of rubbed me the wrong way the most is the Bobby Lashley Swerve Strickland one, because again, in a vacuum, if it's just the main event of Dynamite, I get it. But your biggest star that you have in the company just did this for somebody a couple of matches ago. And then you're doing it, and then it's going to happen again in the main event. Well, okay. But let's just talk about something positive. And of course, the positive is Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Looking at this match without taking the rest of the card into consideration, for me, it's easily the best match. And I don't know what more you could have done to put Kyle Fletcher over and Kyle Fletcher to step into the spotlight and go, I'm here. It was almost perfect.
Yeah.
And Will Ospreay is such a team person that I would call this match a glorified squash. That Will Ospreay got in some incredible offense, but was never in control of the match. And when it came time, it was just move, pin clean. That you're kind of like, Will Ospreay just got pin clean. Wow. But this was perfect. I loved this match. I loved it because Will Ospreay was willing to do that for somebody. And not that he was willing to do it. You have to have somebody step up and take it. And I thought Kyle Fletcher looked the part, wrestled the part. He moved into another stratosphere for me tonight. He was the star of the show. Now, Will Ospreay's got a lot to do with that, but I just don't think he could have handled it any better. I loved everything about this.
This was tremendous. Go out there and buy your Kyle Fletcher stock right now because it is going to continue to go up.
Your proto star?
I am proto star. I am proto star. The look, the way that he's carried himself, the presentation, and obviously his in-ring to boot on top of that. I think this guy, if they're committed to the push, and we've seen it sometimes with AEW where they'll drop a push all of a sudden, but as of right now, I'm looking at Kyle Fletcher and I'm thinking, man, this guy's got a look. He's a bigger dude than you would expect. The gear looks good. He wrestles really well. And I think he's really starting to find this character that he's kind of portraying himself here as the proto star. And I think this is a guy they got to continue to push. He's 25. There's a lot of upside. I think this is a star in the making here in Kyle Fletcher. And obviously a lot of that had to do with Will Ospreay putting in a heck of a performance as well. Somebody that really put over Fletcher. And as you mentioned, is a guy that is a team player. And like I said before, I don't see this affecting Ospreay. My guess is that, once we know this Continental Classic bracket, my guess is that Fletcher and Ospreay will be in the same bracket. And Ospreay could get his, win back in that tournament. But for now, this is definitive. You want to talk about putting a guy over? This is how you do it. Great match, and you have him get the definitive victory. I mean, this is what you do here. And I agree with you. This is the best match of the night. I am really looking forward to seeing what they do with Kyle Fletcher, because you want to talk about, I won't go as far as say a star-making performance, because that's used loosely nowadays. Like, there's like undercard performances now. You'll see someone say, "Oh, that's a star-making performance."
But tell me, you know what? Tell me a better one in the last.
Oh, I was just gonna say this is as close to a star-making performance as you could possibly get. If not, it is a star-making performance. So, I sky's the limit for Kyle Fletcher. I think this is a great showcase. I love the look. I am a buy Kyle Fletcher stock right now.
The look was great. He looked like a star coming out. He acted like one. He performed like one, most importantly. And you can now have him in a spot that was Takeshita's spot. It's now Kyle Fletcher's spot. I know he's the international champion, Takeshita, and he's not, English isn't the best, but it's not like Kyle Fletcher's overwhelmed us with the promo. I thought he had a great promo with Ospreay last week, but this is a star-making performance, and I'm trying to think of one that was better than this one. And again, you have the perfect opponent, right?
Yep.
You have the best wrestler in the world willing to put you over clean in a, again, I think when you pin somebody like Will Ospreay clean after just a bunch of moves, and Will Ospreay's got nothing left, like, I think people were stunned, not that Kyle Fletcher won, but that he won that way. That it looked like Will Ospreay had nothing left, and Kyle Fletcher was the better man. So I thought this was just tremendous. Easily for me, the match of the night. Not even close. Now, I'll bookend that with Bobby Lashley and Swerve Strickland. I don't understand. Again, you're a Bobby Lashley guy. Other people are Bobby Lashley guys. I'm not. But since Swerve Strickland was the AEW World Champion, right?
Yep.
This guy was walking around as the best wrestler in the world. What has happened since then? He lost the AEW World Championship. He lost his house. He lost the cage match to Adam Page. And then he gets squashed by Bobby Lashley? Okay. I don't agree with you that Swerve could afford to take another loss. He'll be fine. But he was top level. He was main event status. He is not that anymore. And that pains me to say. I didn't like this one, not because I don't like Bobby Lashley, because I didn't think that this kind of squash made sense. Especially after you did it with Kyle Fletcher. You don't need to make Bobby Lashley tonight too. You could have put Lashley over a million different ways if you wanted to. You also could have had Swerve very, very fortunately beat him while getting the worst of the match and then having the group continue to pile on him afterwards. I didn't like it. And I just thought with what else had happened on the card, I think Will Ospreay could take a loss. I think Orange Cassidy could take a loss. I think Swerve's taken too many losses. He was the AEW World Champion, walking around as the biggest guy on campus and one of the best wrestlers in the world. A guy, when he came out, I wanted to see. And all that has happened is he has lost every time he has gone out there. Tell me I'm wrong.
I disagree. I think it's okay for Lashley to beat Swerve here. I know that you are not the biggest Bobby Lashley guy, and that is kind of the running bit on this show. but I think Swerve is more than capable to take a loss here. I was somebody in the past that was concerned about Swerve taking a loss, and especially after the Hangman feud, not the initial one that led into the title match, but after the title match with Danielson, but before the title match, I was concerned when he was, facing off against guys like Christian Cage and all that, and I was worried that he was going to be able to maintain it. I think he's at a spot where he could take a loss like this. This is not the end of the storyline. I think this is going to continue on. And especially the way that they've been putting over Bobby Lashley, I think he needed to get the win here, to be quite honest, just to establish him onto TV. And I think Swerve will be just fine. I'm confident in that. And I think this will kind of come back in the future as the storyline goes forward with Swerve getting the victory back. So I am not concerned. I liked the match enough. I didn't think it was an amazing match or anything like that. I didn't think it was a bad match, but I had no problem with the result. I'm not concerned about Swerve. I think he'll be just fine.
When you say you don't think it was a bad match, do you think it was good?
I thought it was all right. I thought it was...
Would you tell people to go back and watch it?
Not really. It was kind of a match on the card. It was clearly set up as the second match, the match behind the main event. It's not a match I would go back and recommend, but it was certainly not the worst match on the card. I could easily tell you what the worst match on the card was. But this was it? It was that 4-way tag match to start off the show.
It was awful.
Oh, it was horrendous.
Okay. So, and let's get to that.
Sure.
First of all, with all the singles matches on the card, I didn't understand the placement of this one. Right from the very beginning, I'm like, cool, you got 4 teams out here. The crowd is not into this match. And you got all kinds of singles matches coming up. You'd think you'd want to just throw one in the middle of it to break it up. I hated all of this.
Yeah, this was very sloppy.
I just wanted it to be over. And the second that the show started for me, and I didn't watch 0 Hour, and all the other teams were in the ring, and then Private Party comes out to all the women coming out. I'm like, yeah, they're not losing.
Yeah. They set them up for a reason like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't watch the pre-show to go see Big Boom AJ take on QT Marshall? It's taking over the internet right now. Watch the Costco guys.
When you say the Costco guys, I say I'm the out guys.
Are you a Costco guy in general? Are you somebody that loves to go to Costco? You have that executive membership,
Yes.
Big Costco guy.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of the double chunk chocolate cookie or the chicken bake?
I'm not sure what that means, but
that's what Big Boom AJ, and Big Justice likes to talk about, and the Rizzler, and I'm sure it's all over your Instagram reels and or your TikTok that I know that you actively look through.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me about Blue Sky.
Blue Sky, yeah. I'm on Blue Sky. It's just 2012 Twitter. That's really what it is. Nothing really too exciting there. So if you like Twitter in 2012 and you wanted to make the escape from X, formerly known as Twitter, then you can head over to Blue Sky. But
okay, good.
But Lee, I don't expect you to be joining Blue Sky any moment. You never joined X, or you had X at one point, but now if you didn't like X, you'll probably won't like Blue Sky.
I still have X. I still have X.
All right, you do have the burner that I am still going to try and figure out where your burner is.
Yes, I know. You've been so successful so far.
It must be Costco Guy Lovers, as that's the Twitter X account, Costco Guys Lover. Yeah, so no review of the Costco Guys in the main event I'm taking.
No.
I did watch the match. It was fun for what it was. I enjoyed it.
Okay. the tag team match was awful. Private Party won.
Yeah.
I would never recommend anybody ever go back and watch this match. It was absolutely horrific.
Can you explain the Acclaimed spot there where they were both legal and they pinned each other?
What I can explain is them watching. What's the other member of Private Party? Not Isaiah Cassidy.
Mark Quinn.
Arquin, sitting in the corner, maybe 2 feet from them. And Max Caster is looking at him and then saying, "Oh, get down. And then to pin Bowens, puts his back. He's literally looking at him. I thought that was one of the dumbest spots I've seen in a long time. In one of the dumbest matches I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, that was not a good match. Very sloppy.
No. Let's continue on. The next match was MJF and Roderick Strong. I didn't mind this match. I thought it was all right. Unfortunately, with MJF, I don't love, and Roderick Strong, I don't love when there are matches that are forgettable. I thought it was okay. And I didn't mind the subtle at the end. Like, I'm not a big fan of pay-per-views that continue on storylines, just like it's Dynamite. I felt like this was Dynamite, where they were just continuing on a storyline. But the storyline itself, with him beating Roderick Strong, trying to hurt him, Adam Cole comes out late. And I was thinking, like, just as a regular fan, man, Adam Cole kind of missed it by like 10 seconds. He should have been out there a little bit earlier. And then they played off of that. But what I don't understand about it, and you can help explain it to me, is that when Adam Cole and the Undisputed Kingdom came out, Bennett and Taven, and then Kyle O'Reilly comes out, and Kyle O'Reilly pushes Adam Cole because he's mad at him that he got out late. I'm like, well, then where were you, Kyle? like, I get it. Adam Cole was late. And his friend got his hand busted up. But so were everybody else. Bennett and Taven and O'Reilly were late too. It wasn't like Kyle O'Reilly was running down and Adam Cole was sauntering kind of behind him, and now O'Reilly's mad at Cole for being late. No, Adam was the first one out there. Was he late? Yep. So it kind of made sense to me that Cole came out there and now he's a little bit late. You kind of don't know still what's going on. It's the angle itself, I don't mind. I just need to see it on Dynamite and not at a pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand why you're mad at somebody for being late when you're also late. I feel like that happens a lot in life. Relationships, you're out, you're a little bit late. Somebody's yelling at you. Like they get there 5 minutes after you and they're yelling at you for being late. You're kind of like, do you understand that you're late? Or like, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got you. I imagine that Adam Cole and Kyle O'Reilly and the Undisputed Kingdom, or whatever they're called, they were just kind of talking backstage, and maybe Adam Cole was telling this very deep, intense story and had them lose focus on what was going on in the match, and they realized too late what was going on in the ring, and maybe that's why Kyle O'Reilly was mad at Adam Cole for distracting them for so long to get them into the ring. Maybe that's what's going on there. Late like Papa Shango trying to get in to interfere against Hogan and Sid Justice at Mania. Yeah, the match itself, I enjoyed it. I think I liked this more than other people did because a lot were lower on it, and I think part of that has to do with the angle at the end. But I enjoyed the work for what it was. The issue I have with it is, MJF has started to incorporate the real life stuff with Roderick Strong in terms of his upbringing. And how he was raised. But the problem with it is that Roderick Strong is still doing elements of his comedic character from the past.
Yeah.
So it just takes out all the seriousness of that promo of that angle and then just kind of makes it a part of the story and doesn't give you that emotional impact that you're looking for if you're going to invoke that sort of stuff. So to me, it becomes null and void. Like, it's some serious stuff that MJF is throwing out there. But then Roderick Strong, because of the character that he's portrayed for so long, he has to still scream out the name. He still has to do the comedic elements to his character. It just doesn't work. And it, makes the storyline lack some depth. In terms of the work itself in this match, I enjoyed it. I think these two, I think these two could work well with each other. And, I've always been a fan of Roderick Strong in ring. I think he's a tremendous in-ring wrestler. So I'm a little higher on the work, but the angle itself, like what you were saying, it definitely felt like something that could have happened on Dynamite, as they're going to continue this story here between MJF and Adam Cole. The sooner we could get that story done, the better. We could wrap that up in a nice little bow and move on. But the story must continue, Lee. So that's how it's going to go.
Mercedes Moné beats Chris Statlander, and I thought this was good for the most part. It was better than I thought it was going to be, except for when they got in their runs toward the end. Like, I'll call them finishing sequences, because there's kind of sequences to a near fall and another sequence to a near fall. While I thought they were good, they were clunky. It wasn't clean. And I thought that takes away a little bit, but I thought they worked really hard, and I thought they told a decent story. I just thought it was a little clunky at the end, because that's kind of what both of them do. And I still don't even understand for 1 second what's Mercedes Moné's move that she used to do, but now is not her finisher, but then she used it again in this match.
I want to say it's the Money Maker.
Whatever it is, it's terrible.
It's a bad looking move, yeah.
And nobody can really execute it on the other end, and certainly Chris Statlander could not. However, I didn't mind the match. It got better as it went along. There were some good near falls in it. I thought they worked really hard. I liked this better than some other women's matches I've seen. I just thought it got a little clunky at the end.
So I think I'm starting to sense a pattern on stuff that I'm higher on and you're lower on. I thought this was the best women's match in AEW that was not a hardcore match. I really like this match. I thought this was Mercedes Moné's best match in AEW by far in this company. And I agree with you on the finishing stretch. It was definitely clunky nearing the end, and I think they could have stopped some of the reversals that they were doing. Yes, the Money Maker, or All About the Money, or whatever it's called, the finishing move. That needs to go. It needed to go yesterday. But having said all that, as someone that's been critical of Mercedes Moné since she's come in, and the way that she's booked and the matches that she's had, I gotta give her credit here. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this. And I thought this was the best women's match in AEW so far this year. That was not the hardcore match with Statlander and Willow Nightingale. I thought that was better. But if you're looking for a pure in-ring match from the women's division, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy, Lee. When you bring in Mercedes Moné, somebody who's known for having good in-ring matches, and you put her in a ring with another wrestler that is known to have good in-ring matches, and lo and behold, Lee, they go out there and they have a good in-ring match.
Yeah,
wow.
That's true.
Oh, we're reinventing the wheel here in terms of how to push somebody. You mean to tell me that someone whose strength is not whose weaknesses is promos, putting her out there each week to do promos would affect her star power? Wow. I thought you would have thought the 17,000 writers that are back there would have picked that one up, but I digress. I thought this was a tremendous match. I really liked it. I thought this was the second best match on the show. Best women's match from AEW that wasn't a hardcore match. I thought this was great. And I agree with you on that finishing stretch. They could have cut it off a little bit earlier, But to me, that's kind of a smaller point into the grand scheme of things. I really enjoyed it, and the crowd was clearly invested in it as well. Thought it was a tremendous match. Really did.
Yeah, I have to admit, I think in some of the critical analysis of Mercedes Moné, I still think she needs to be out there more, doing more stuff like this on a regular basis. But in big time moments, she does step up.
Yes.
I like the match with Willow Nightingale more than this one, but in the last 3, 4, 5 performances from her, when she's been, in a pay-per-view or in a big time spot, she's delivered. And that's good. They're paying her a lot of money, but she looks good. I'm looking forward to her getting into the ring and doing this a little bit more with some other people that can really push her, because it's worth it in the end. So I thought Statlander did a pretty good job. Again, little clunky, but no, I understand that, and they worked hard, and they did I don't know what you want to say other than the fact of, like, you don't have a really good beat on what Jack Perry's doing in life. I think you should stay away from Jack Perry predictions. Just let the pros handle it.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know what? Look, Ben was on too, and Ben was picking Jack Perry, and you got a scapegoat jacket.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, look, guys, just let me handle the Jack Perry stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
My goodness, yeah.
I'm the only one that picked Daniel Garcia to win the championship.
Yeah.
I thought this was a pretty easy one as well. Not as easy as the last one that you screwed up, but still pretty easy.
Yeah.
And then, well, lo and behold, sitting there with Daniel Garcia with his hand in the air, I'm like, how could I be the only one? Am I that smart?
I will say I'm starting to understand why CM Punk was so mad at Jack Perry at that All In show. The more this happens, so
I don't actually have a lot to say about this match.
Oh, me neither.
I didn't like it, and I fault Daniel Garcia somewhat too. Hulking up 3 times or 4 times in the match. Okay, the Outrunners can hulk up once and do their little power elbow or whatever, and it's funny. I don't need Daniel Garcia kind of hulking up 3 or 4 times in a match. I didn't think he was very good in this one either. I thought he oversold in bad spots. I just didn't like this match. And Daniel Garcia is your new TNT champion, and good for him. But I didn't like this match.
Yeah, this match bored me to tears. I think there's a good wrestler there, Jack Perry. I've seen him have good matches, but I don't know. I just don't think he's going to be at this level that they view him at. I just don't see it. I like Daniel Garcia quite a bit. I think he's a really talented in-ring guy. I just don't think the chemistry was there between these two, and it's one of my Zachisms that has been quoted to me. They exchanged holds. They had a match. They worked with each other here, and it was 18 minutes and 16 seconds long according to my run sheet, and I sure felt every minute of it. So Daniel Garcia won. I had a feeling when they mentioned that his mom was in the crowd that he was going to win, and I said, damn it, Jack Perry has screwed me over again.
Oh, that was the thing that told you?
That was the thing that tipped me off.
It was his 3rd time challenging for the title, not the fact that he re-signed, not the fact that, like, they pretty much dead and buried him, and now they're bringing him back, and now there's nowhere for Jack Perry to go. You needed his mom to be in the crowd to figure this one out?
Look, better late than never, okay? I figured it out late.
Oh, my God.
But just as the match was starting, they were like, oh, Daniel Garcia's mom is in the crowd. It's like, well, there it goes. I know who's going to win this one now. Any semblance of hope I had for Jack Perry winning, which hope is a strong word in that instance, but any semblance of thought of me thinking Jack Perry was going to win was pretty much gone and evaporated at that point.
Good. So, well, I'm glad that happened before the match started.
Yeah.
So that
again, better late than never. I wish we could have recorded the podcast just as the match was going on, but nonetheless,
that's why they're predictions.
That's right.
Right.
I think I'm a bad predictor. I'll say that right now. I think my analysis is okay. I mean, heck, this is the 280th episode. I must have something to provide. But like Jack Perry getting over to a main event level, I cannot predict a card to save my life. So
anyway, you just let me handle the Jack Perry stuff. We'll be
please.
after that.
He just keeps on screwing me over. I start to understand Punk a little bit more every time. So,
okay, let's quickly just because I do want to get to the Continental Classic here. The blocks are out, and I want to talk about them. But your thoughts on Takeshita beating Ricochet?
I wanted more out of this match. I didn't think it was bad, but considering the high level athlete Takeshita is and what we assume Ricochet is, I wanted more. Again, I thought what we got wasn't bad, and I thought there were elements of it that was good. If it was Daniel Garcia and Jack Perry and they switched spots, I would have probably said this was a good match. But considering the caliber of talents between these two, I was hoping for more. And so Takeshita retains, which is the right call. I saw some people ragging on Ricochet for saying he's going to try and prove himself to be a guy that can carry a company. And it's like, first of all, it's like, what do you want the guy to say? Do you want the guy to say, you know what? I want to show up and I want to make sure this company goes into the ground, and I'm going to make sure I bury this company, 7 feet under, 7,000 feet under, right? You expect the guy to say that? Like, the guys, of course, just want to come in and be motivated. Having said that, I do not think he has the goods to be somebody that can carry a company. Mm-hmm. I think he's a solid guy you could have on your card. I think he's a guy you could go out there and be reliable to put on good performances, but I don't think he's a main event guy. I really don't. Yeah,
I would agree with that. And then Jay White getting win number 5 over Hangman Page. I came into this thinking that Hangman could take another loss because he's Hangman, and it kind of makes his character a little bit more deranged. But I'm going to tell you, after watching him lose to Jay White and then watching him kind of come out, and I don't really know what he did in the main event other than kind of hand the thing, but not hand the contract to Christian, but then hand it to him and then leave. I'm starting to worry. Just about, I understand he's putting people over, and look, Jay White deserves everything he can get right now because they buried him for a while. Yep. So I'm happy for him. This has nothing to do with Jay White. I thought Hangman character could take another loss, and I still wouldn't care as a fan, but I kind of do right now. And it's fresh, but I kind of do. I think he's taken a lot of losses as well.
Yeah, I much like Swerve, I think he's going to be fine, but it's getting closer for me when it comes to Adam Page than I do with Swerve Strickland in terms of, okay, where are we going here? Jay White getting another victory. I like the idea of just the wrestler having that one guy he just cannot beat. I like that idea of a story. Like, he could do this and do this, but this one guy, he just has a real tough time beating this guy, so that when he does eventually beat this guy, it means something. And I think that's kind of the story that they're putting together here with Jay White. And in the meantime, like you mentioned, it's something to try and get Jay White back into the main event frame and be a pushed commodity. I think these two have really good chemistry too. This was not as good as their last pay-per-view match, I thought, but I still enjoyed this match. And so, yeah, Jay White winning, this was something I predicted, one of the good predictions I've got. I
don't try and get off the Jack Perry stuff.
Look, I need some sort of W here, Lee. I mean, Jack Perry's just been ruining the vibes for me every time on my pick'ems. So I need something to get the good vibes going, and why not go for mention the Jay White selection? Yeah, I like the match. I'm not concerned about Hangman. If between him and Swerve, I think Hangman's a little bit closer to going where it's like, okay, he needs to rally some wins, but I think Hangman will be fine. I still think that there's some sort of story kind of being put together here with Page. So I'm not that concerned. I did like the match here, though.
All right. Overall, Full Gear. Hate to say it. This is the first time I've given an AEW pay-per-view less than a B, but this is what's happening here for me. Even Ospreay and Fletcher couldn't move this one up. I thought it was a little boring. I thought it was a little methodical. I thought there were some, as I've mentioned, some glorified squashes to some big time people. And it just had a lot of the elements that you talk about where producers don't talk to each other, and a lot of the same stuff. A lot of injury angles, just kept going on and on with injury angles. I thought the crowd was representative of the card. They were into the Ospreay Fletcher match. They were into Mercedes Moné and Chris Statlander. They were into a couple of others, but the ones that weren't good, they weren't into. And it showed on the card. I just thought too much repetition of the same kind of writing and storyline, too many squashes. And honestly, I'm glad that you're putting people over, and I'm all for it. I just don't think you should do it all at once. And like I said before, when you put Kyle Fletcher and Bobby Lashley and a whole bunch of people and Jay White, like, they're good wrestlers. But when I got on the other side that tonight Will Ospreay and Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland and Orange Cassidy and Jack Perry all lost clean, that's a lot of top talent losing clean in one night. But and as you said, there's no real babyface moment here.
Yeah. And
if you're expecting me to have the babyface moment to be Private Party at the beginning, yeah, that didn't happen.
That did not come from that match for sure.
Right. So where was the 12-year-old kid that wants to cheer for the baby faces? What did he get tonight? She get tonight? Not a lot.
Yeah, not much. Maybe Daniel Garcia if you wanted to make that argument, but
yeah, you could, but it was just kind of, it should have been more.
Yeah.
Like, I should have felt more in that match, especially with one babyface winning a championship. I should have felt more in that moment, and I didn't. So I give this a C+. What about you?
I am higher on this card, I think, and it was funny. I got a message from Ben before we started recording how this was the first AEW pay-per-view for him as well that he thought was less than great, which kind of surprised me. I thought there were pay-per-views worse than this.
Listen, if Fanboy doesn't like it, we got ourselves an issue here, right?
Yeah, I will say this. I thought there were AEW pay-per-views worse than this show. But
which one?
I could think back during the pandemic to
stop All Out. The pandemic. Stop.
All Out 2020.
The pandemic is not a representation of what is going on. You can't compare. It'd be like, oh, I thought WrestleMania in the pandemic was worse than WrestleMania is now. Of course it was.
Okay, fine. Pandemic not counting, then I look back to last year's Double or Nothing. That kind of bummed me out a little bit. I think this past year's Double or Nothing as well, that it was just so angle heavy where I'm like, guys, can we just have one match, please? On this pay-per-view. So I could think of worse pay-per-views than this, but this is obviously, having said that, this is not in the upper echelon of AEW pay-per-views for sure. I am more in the B- tier, probably more on the B- side.
Okay, so we're not that far apart. C+, B-.
No, I certainly came away from this like I didn't come away thinking, man, I watched this bad wrestling show or I was disappointed. There was stuff that I didn't like, but
my problem, Zach, is if I take Ospreay and Fletcher out, it's like a D performance.
I think the big one for me was that Mercedes Moné Chris Statlander match, because I think that's a much higher match for me than I think it was for you, and that really helped kind of carry it over. And I thought some of the undercard matches, like, you know, other than the tag team title match aside, I didn't think there was anything really straight up bad. More so along the lines of good, if not amazing, or good, if not anything special. So I'm a little higher on this card than I think others are. I enjoyed it for what it was. So I'm hovering around that B- B sort of area.
Okay. Also, Zach, not putting a lot of stock in how the main event ends, which is to me a pretty big part of your pay-per-view, how the last match ends, and it was just a cluster bleep. So
did not like that main event angle. That is true. That probably I think that hindered it down from a B+ for me, quite honestly. Okay. So
all right. So let's get to, before we go here, that the blocks have been announced, the Gold League and the Blue League.
Yes, we are recording this at 11 o'clock, and they announced this half an hour ago.
Well, that's good. We're on top of things.
That's right.
But this is wrestling. We're on top of things.
Of course, we planned this out like we knew this was going to happen. Of course.
So we got 6 wrestlers in each. This is the Continental Classic coming up. We'll start in the Blue League, where defending champion Kazuchika Okada is in. And then you also have Kyle Fletcher, big win tonight. Daniel Garcia, big win tonight. TNT champion. Mark Briscoe, Ring of Honor champion. Shelton Benjamin, and the Beast Mortos. Go over to the Gold League, and it is filled with some talent. Darby Allin, Claudio Castagnoli, Will Ospreay, Ricochet, Brody King, and Juice Robinson. So already, to me, I have a path here towards how this is going to go. But interested, we don't have to break down the entire Continental Classic tonight, but I think it's interesting to look at the groups, look who is in, look who is not in, and see why this tournament can be beneficial, for a number of people. What do you think of the groups?
I like it. I like a lot of those names in there. I'm looking forward to a lot of those matchups from both of these, from the Gold and the Blue League. Some good mix of wrestlers as well. You've got your, flashier wrestlers and your Will Ospreays, your Ricochets, your Okadas. You could throw Kyle Fletcher in there. And then you've got a nice mix of heavy wrestlers as well. Your Brody Kings and the Beast Mortos. I'm very excited to see how Beast Mortos does in the Continental Classic. I'm a big Beast Mortos guy. So yeah, I like a lot of the names on here. Some good, reliable names. So that gets a thumbs up from me in terms of some of the talent that's involved here.
And just like I said, we will break down the Continental Classic a little bit more, certainly as the tournament goes along. I thought coming into this that this would be a very, very difficult tournament for Kazuchika Okada to lose again. Just with where I think they should go with him and who I thought was going to be in it. I'm a little bit surprised at the talent that's in it. I don't know if I've changed my mind. But Zach, you've seen the groups. We'll talk about it more, but I'm interested in an early kind of prediction from you and who comes out to be in the finals here.
There's 4 names that are kind of really sticking out to me. 2 from Gold League, 2 from Blue League. Blue League, obviously Okada.
Yep.
And the other one would be Fletcher. Those are the names that stick out for me. And the Gold League, the 2 names that stick out for me are Will Ospreay, and the other one would be Darby Allin. Those are kind of my standout names so far, as we're kind of recording this. Where I could see them making a run into the final. I think a dark horse could be Daniel Garcia, based on the story they told with him last year's Continental Classic. But otherwise, those are kind of the 4 names initially that kind of stick out to me.
I hope they don't go this way because it would be predictable, but it certainly trends towards Will Ospreay and either Kazuchika Okada or Kyle Fletcher.
Yes.
And you think about, some of the matches, they're all going to be good matches, but you think that Will Ospreay is going to get Ricochet in one of the, the preliminaries. You think about Okada and Fletcher going after each other.
Yep.
But this does strike me as what happened today, that Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher are going to meet in the finals.
Yeah.
Now you could throw in Kazuchika Okada in there as well, but that's just my preliminary. Okay, what happened tonight? The blocks are released, and it's another path here for Ospreay to go through a whole tournament here to get back to where he needs to get back to, and I think that might be the right decision.
Yeah. I think an underrated match in the Gold League that I think could be an awesome match if given time. I think Will Ospreay versus Claudio Castagnoli, those two together could be really fun. Because Castagnoli can be a great base for Ospreay, and he could go toe to toe with Ospreay. I think that could be a really fun dynamic.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. We'll talk more about the Continental Classic as time goes on, but very interesting to see the groups after Full Gear has finished the blocks release just half an hour after the main event. Zach, this has been fun. Always good to catch up with you. And I'm a little disappointed tonight after watching Full Gear, but doesn't mean I'm disappointed what's coming up here in the future.
Yeah, there's still some things to kind of sink your teeth into with AEW. It's just a matter of these TVs. Like I said at the start, it feels like there's kind of two AEWs right now. There's the television run of AEW and the pay-per-view run of AEW. And for all we kind of crap on with AEW, and rightfully so, with their attendance and the way the TVs have kind of gone, the pay-per-views have kind of been their sort of, saving grace in a lot of ways. They had 10,000 people in the building at the Prudential Center. They usually do pretty well on the pay-per-view buys, so that's always usually a sure thing. So I'm kind of fascinated to see what the pay-per-view buys will be after that. But all that to say, it's always fun to chat with you, even if when it's 11:10 in the evening. I will not repeat my rant from last year about last year's Continental Classic and the fact that we learned the participants the day before. I was mad at Tony Khan about that, mainly because it is 11:10 and I do not want to wake up my neighbors. But nonetheless, I am looking forward to the Continental Classic.
Hope you enjoyed the Full Gear review and a little bit of a look ahead to the Continental Classic. For Zach McGibbon, I'm Lee Versage. Thanks again for listening to This Is Wrestling.